Hold on.
Sorry. So my question was on Havana syndrome, not Nevada. Sorry, on the Havana syndrome.
And now we got to talk about Biden, because he just had his worst senior moment of all time. Like, guys, we've seen a lot of bad Biden gaffes where he looks like he is completely lost and doesn't know what's going on. But this is the hardest to watch. It's the toughest one I've ever seen, because he's asked a question about Havana syndrome, which is a kind of mysterious illness that was reported at some foreign US sites like embassies and the like overseas that led some people to suspect that they were being kind of sabotaged or harmed in some way. Anyway, it's this whole thing. Biden was asked about this and went on over a minute-long answer about something else entirely. Take a listen. It's hard to watch.
If I could also ask about Havana syndrome. Today, the intelligence community assessment changed slightly, with two intelligence agencies now saying there's an even chance that this is being caused by a foreign actor. Do you personally believe that a foreign actor is responsible for these incidents?
No. Now, do I believe that ISIS's theology, if you will, has impacted people in America? Some who are not particularly well suited to handle the life they live. It has that effect. But I find no evidence, and I spent 17, 18 hours with the community right off the bat trying to determine whether or not there was any outside influence. And thus far, we find no connection between an outside player, individual. But that doesn't mean someone reading the malarkey that's going out there isn't influenced by it. Both these men, both in Nevada and in Louisiana, have been men who've had their own problems but not because they've been influenced by a specific individual.
Sorry. So my question was on Havana syndrome, not Nevada. Sorry, on the Havana syndrome, the intelligence community today, part of their assessment changed, saying that there is now an even chance that the Havana syndrome cases and incidents, there's a foreign actor potentially behind them. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't have the full brief on that right now. I'm not going to comment on that.
Do you have an update on Austin?
This is bleak. Biden, the sitting president of the United States, was asked an extremely clear question about Havana syndrome, which is something that a president is surely briefed about, knows all about, it's all in the news, and went on a long diatribe talking about recent attacks in the United States that had nothing to do with this. He just totally glitched, misunderstood the question entirely, and went off in his own reality for over a minute uninterrupted. And then when he did get brought back to reality, reminded what the question actually was, had nothing to say about it, even though he's the sitting president with the nuclear codes, who could be at any moment, guys, and this is, remember, the most important thing the president is ultimately responsible for is national security and our national defense. At any moment, Biden could be called into the emergency situation room and presented with an incoming nuclear strike or a world crisis and have minutes to make decisions that could literally affect the fate of humanity on this planet. And what if he just doesn't understand the question, just glitches, just stares off into the sunset, or thinking about what pudding he's going to have later? Like, this is not okay. They perpetuated a lie for years. The mainstream media, almost every leading politician in the Democratic Party, and lied to us and told us he was fine. It's all just right-wing fake news. All the while we saw with our eyes what was really happening with this man. And look, I've said this before. There's nothing wrong with aging and losing a step and cognitive decline. There's nothing immoral about that makes you a bad person. It happens to many people who age, and they deserve our sympathy and our compassion. But what is absolutely immoral, because it is so profoundly irresponsible and has put our whole nation at risk, is clinging to power past the point when you and your whole family know well that you are not suited to wield it. And I think it is a disgrace, and I think it will be looked back at through historians and just by generations of Americans to come as one of the biggest lies to be perpetuated on the public by a sitting president and his administration and his allies, and then one of the biggest scandals of media in terms of downplaying, denying, gaslighting, and defending the people in power from scrutiny when that's literally the opposite of their job. They're supposed to scrutinize what politicians say and hold them to account and question those who wield power and influence, not do their PR, not discredit the evidence against them or the facts that undercut what politicians are claiming. But that's what they did for years in mainstream media. They said Republicans are sharing cheap fakes. They literally invented a fake new term because it wasn't deep fakes. It wasn't fake videos. It was cheap fakes, real videos that they just said were misleading or lacked context or whatever, AKA true things that undercut a narrative. And they tried to brand them as some new form of misinformation or something. It's tough to watch and look. I'm glad that he'll only be in office for a matter of days now, but the fact that he's remained this way and he's been all this way this whole while has been putting our national security at risk. That's not really an open question at this point. We seem to have gotten away with it and probably still will without a true crisis happening and that vulnerability being exposed. But I've got to say, we really rolled the dice with that. And it's one of many reasons, I think, that because we have age minimums on the presidency, on being in Congress and the Senate and other jobs, we should also have age maximums because nobody Biden's age really has the energy or the stamina to fulfill the world's hardest and most demanding job. And by age gating it, you can avoid this kind of situation at least a large share of the time. Because if you had an age limit of 65 to enter the presidency or 60 to enter a first term or whatever we could come up with, we could quibble about the details. It's just some people could get early onset Alzheimer's or something. It could still become an issue. And I'm not saying Biden has that. I'm saying another person could have that. But most of the issues about potential cognitive decline while in office would be ameliorated by some sort of age maximum. And given that we already have minimums, I don't see why we wouldn't have the opposite, other than geriatrics being unwilling to give up their death grip on power. I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi, look at Republicans too, to a lesser extent, but they do it too. Look at Mitch McConnell. He's way too old and clearly in failing health, but is still in the Senate and still maintaining his position. So all of this, I think it's a real problem, both on a political level and on a media level. And I really hope that we've learned some lessons from this sad saga, but I just don't think we have, if I'm being honest. What do you guys think? What was your reaction to seeing this clip? Let me know in the comments, and do hit that like button while you're at it, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you aren't yet.